Hi, everybody. This information session, it's number 6, isn't it, Sam? So this is the information session number 6. This is the bi-weekly recording that we do where we have a guest from our ecosystem dealing with Metaverse as a way to bring information to the extended community competing on the Metaverse for SDGs Global Prize and Virtual Reality Competition. Just as an update, we have about 660 registrants for the competition right now from across 60 countries. Again, if you go to the Facebook community page that we set up, we see a lot of good chatter going on there. People are using that to find team members in order to participate in the competition. Also, all the recordings are on the YouTube channel, including this one will be posted later this week. What I'd like to do is jump into the topic this week, and I'll set a little bit of context for this topic. So we've been sharing with everybody in the community that Exponential Destiny, with the support of the ITU of the United Nations, one of our main objectives was to give exposure out into the world to individuals on the potential upskilling and reskilling possibilities of learning the metaverse, virtual reality, mixed reality, that whole field and that whole profession. At Exponential Destiny, we've seen firsthand how once you are able to obtain these skills, you can find employment in the market, and that market continues to grow. We've also been emphasizing that, similar to Samantha, who's from Exponential Destiny, Samantha is an art major, and so she's admittedly not a very technical person. However, in the last year and a half, she's done close to 24 projects in virtual reality, building out metaverse spaces for corporations and for schools. And she is particularly good at it. I'd say she's probably the best on the team. And I think that's attributed to her design thinking capabilities and her creative artistic capabilities. Because when you get into virtual reality, if you let a lot of technical people get in there, they're going to make a really noisy environment with a lot of shiny objects and things going on, and it can almost be too stimulating to a user. So it really helps to have someone on your team that's very kind of feng shui and likes to sit back and think about a story and a narrative and how to communicate something and how to build images that are pleasing to the eye and the senses and don't overwhelm you, et cetera. It's a whole skill set, and it's probably going to be one of the more valuable skill sets. And we probably have been de-emphasizing the technical skill set that's required, mainly because at Exponential Destiny, we're focused on looking at people in economically stressed situations that didn't get the proper public education, perhaps. And we're trying to find avenues to put them into a relevant job economy using metaverse skills. And we're not saying that a prerequisite is that you learn programming computer language. And what we found is there's platforms out there. We shared these platforms on previous sessions. You heard from Engage and one of the executives at the Engage platform who gave you a demo on how to create in their environment. And you saw that they didn't write any code, but they were able to create all types of images and theater and stuff in virtual reality and really bring it to life, particularly around a sustainable development goal for this competition. Now, with that said, we think it would be an injustice to give you the impression that having a technical coding knowledge is not extremely valuable in this environment. We're just saying it's not a prerequisite to where you can be successful. However, there is a whole emerging profession, obviously, around metaverse where there's some heavy lifting around technical capabilities that some of you are going to really gravitate towards, and you're going to be very proficient in this, and you're going to want to take that career path. And for that discussion, we came across an amazing organization that was founded and run by Ferhan here, who is the head of the XR Bootcamp. I believe you're the co-founder, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Co-founder, and he'll share in a little bit of the backstory. But the XR Bootcamp is like a high-powered training, curriculum-based model to get you really technical skills to be a full stack developer, essentially, in the metaverse, to really understand all the aspects of creating these environments, some of the back end architecture, as well as the front end user interfaces, all of this stuff. And so we thought it'd be important to have a session where we dedicate this to really that whole more technical professional field. And Ferhan is the best person probably that we could identify on the planet that can take you through that. So with that, welcome, Ferhan. I appreciate you attending the session, and I'm sure the community we have here will be excited to hear about what you and XR Bootcamp is all about.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Samantha. It was great to be part of this session, but also great to a little bit support on such a noble initiative that you are spearheading. I think eventually we will see all these social impacts being first imagined in the metaverse and then coming to real life in a short period of time. So I believe that whatever type of outcomes that we will see at the end of this initiative will be actually one of the biggest inspirations for the future of social impact projects. And I'm happy to be here. As you mentioned, we are really spearheading on the technical side, at least upskilling not only the beginner level people, but also the professionals. We are, as XR Bootcamp, the only academy focusing also on the advanced classes as well for multiple platforms. There's huge need in the industry. So our goal, like for the last actually 7 years, we were working on democratizing VR AR development and innovation with the help of biggest manufacturers like HTC, Oculus, Intel, Leap Motion. We have distributed hundreds of equipment to different parts of the world. Over 50 labs that we have seat supported around the world, from Africa to Vietnam to different parts of US, Europe. So the goal was always how we can make headsets accessible, especially if you remember back then, maybe 5-6 years ago, these equipment were not that accessible like today. Now, thankfully, we are seeing that anyone can access, not only afford, but also can access in their own country, purchase that with a price which is maybe half of the price of a smartphone, right? So that's actually amazing opportunity for the last 6 years, how we come to that point. So that's why after this social impact initiative, we started another initiative right at the beginning of pandemic. How we can, now we have enough number of headsets that everyone can access, how we can actually help the industry and the talents out there who have already access to the equipment to upskill them and to bring them to the level that they can actually find career opportunities, build new companies. So creating an economical value globally or in a regional ways with clusters and with these different programs. And most importantly, how we can help closing the VR AR skills gap, not in terms of quantity, but also quality and diversity as well. So that's what we are actually dealing with for the last 2-3 years. And we are really happy that the industry is giving back in terms of contribution to our programs, and they are helping us to disseminate their expertise to be around among the industry. So we really are happy to also support you guys with this knowledge, know-how that we have collected for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's great. And maybe to level set for people that will listen to this, because a lot of our community, out of the 600 to 700 people that have registered, Ferhan, I think I shared this with you earlier, the vast majority of them, I think it's 75%, have indicated in the survey when we ask them how many years of experience they have with virtual reality, 70-80% of them say they've never tried on a virtual reality headset even, which is perfect, because that's actually part of the community that we wanted to get exposure to, was to people that haven't really been exposed to it. Keep in mind, all experience levels can compete in the competition. Yeah. Someone that's got 30 years of experience versus someone that's got no experience. And I think ultimately it'll be creativity that wins this competition. But with that said, just to level set, if I'm someone that is really kind of, my interest is perked, I'm kind of excited about this concept of getting into the metaverse. I hear it's the next generation of the internet. I realize that I'm ahead of the curve, not behind the curve, because I'm getting into it at the right time. Now is the time to get into this. Yeah. What can you explain to me in very basic terms, what's the tool set of categories of tools, like development tools, user interface tools? What are the different tool sets? What are the brands of the tools? Meaning, what are the names of these tools? And how should I kind of organize it in my head to think about that whole technical space, if I'm interested in kind of thinking about pursuing it? Then my follow-up question will be, now that I understand a little bit of the landscape of what I got to learn, how do you recommend I go think about learning it more on the technical side?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not only the hardware being democratized for the last 6 years, of course, the production pipelines and the software platforms or creation platforms also get at least more accessible, right? Because when you look at the beginning, unfortunately, every company was trying to achieve something by themselves in their maybe walled garden, right? That they are building their own SDKs without so much concern about the open. Is it interoperable, or is it open enough that I can actually, as a developer, when I build something, an experience, an app in one of the platforms, can I also deploy this to another platform, right? So if you ask me this question 4 or 5 years ago, I would say you need to really work a lot and to really make a lot of tweaks before you make it ready for another platform, because the interoperability is quite sophisticated. But now it's nice to see that companies are joining forces together, at least to make developers' life easier. So the platforms that I will a little bit mention today is actually getting standardized as well. So you clearly see that. And the critical thing from our side is we call it real-time 3D environment. So like Engage or other platforms that you have maybe gone through in the previous sessions, it's all based on a real-time 3D environment. Real-time 3D means that there is, I'm also coming from a AAA game industry, so, and game engine background. So it's basically a tool that lets you to create environments, interactions, some playful maybe game design in the same environment, by not so much focusing on what will be the physics or light or shadow look like, because the engine itself is actually taking care of these, imitating the real life rules or physical life, our planet's rules of the whole world, maybe because we have a lot of calculations maybe we should do normally, right? How an object is dropping, right? How whenever I put a light source in one of the part of the room, how it reflects the shadow and everything throughout the room, right? So these kind of things are quite sophisticated, like maybe calculations, and the real-time engines is actually calculating it for you or managing it for you in the backend, so you can continue working on building the, like a normal, like a Lego type of thing, or like a Minecraft, that you can put things around, and these things are interacting with the help of your scripts, we call it, that you can write, and then it interacts with each other, or you define how it moves, how it reacts, you know. So this is something that from our perspective, real-time 3D engines are important, and other parts are mostly asset creation, right? Art creation tools, which has been used by the industry for a long time, like 3D Max, Maya, Blender. These like 3D creation tools are always, of course, helpful. So you are basically bringing all these assets created by these design, modeling, animation tools into the engine, and inside the engine, you are positioning them, you are creating your environment, and you are defining how it reacts. And with the scripts that you are writing, actually, this is the one that you can actually real-time simulate whatever you would like to create. That's I can tell that this is the basic maybe components of a typical VR, AR, or game experience.
What would, so, you know, like if we take a platform like Engage or Spatial or Gatherings or Horizon, these are the platforms that we kind of call it 3D versions of PowerPoint. You know, you can get in there and create almost like you would with PowerPoint, but you're in 3D. And to your point, if I'm in Engage and I pull in an object from the database of objects that they have available, you know, I put a dinosaur there and the sun is on the dinosaur moves around, the sun will reflect differently on the dinosaur. So all that computation and algorithm and all that stuff is already designed for you. So it's really just,
Exactly.
It's not coding, it's just creating theater and expressing yourselves. What about environments where I want to be the one who creates the Engage platform myself? So I don't want to use a platform like Engage because maybe I want to build something that I can create I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to create a game and I want to have it as a standalone game. I don't want to have people to buy a Engage software license to then access my invention or my innovation.
Yeah.
I actually want to create my own from scratch. I think that's the field that you're in, using tools like Unity and others. Do you want to describe that whole space a little bit of someone who really wants to build it from the bottom up?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you mentioned, Engage and these kind of platforms, they are also based on Unity, but you can see all these Mozilla hubs, etc. All of them are actually based on a real-time engine, usually Unity, but there are also Unreal-based platforms as well. But everything is predefined there, right? Your asset library is there that you are pulling out from the asset library, which is already pre-created. So think of like, these cooking or chef programs that, okay, this is how I cook, but by the way, I have something that is already being cooked for you, so we can continue afterwards. So it's basically like this kind of mindset that there are already cooked materials that you can bring the components together, right? This is how Engage or no-code, low-code tools are working. But on Unity, you can actually go to the ingredient level, right? So which means that you can actually code what you would like to. You can always create an asset, so I will not go to the art part, but for the coding part, you can actually code how an object reacts and how the environment is actually being designed. Because keep in mind that even though there are a lot of like preset environments, assets, as you just mentioned, there are so many opportunities out there that you would like to simulate, which has not been simulated before, right? You would like to maybe use your superpowers, coding and scripting powers to create something from scratch. And when you do that, how does it work is all these platforms are also like a very, very large piece of code, right? Like a software, right? So, for example, Unity, all the real-time 3D engine is based on C#, right? Which is one of the programming languages. On the Unreal side, it is C++, right? So when you look at from this perspective, these engines are not only letting you to plug and play, so like you can grab an object and then put inside predefined assets, etc., and then even predefined interactions, but these real-time 3D environments are letting you to manipulate what you have brought, which you can do with the code, or create your own interactions as well. For example, there is an object, how I will grab this, or how I can utilize the physics engine behind the running behind, right, on the back end, and how I can use it in the best way possible. Maybe you will make zero gravity, or maybe a gravity parameter that you would like to add to there, right? So the object will not fall as we observe on Earth, right? So this is something that you can play around with the help of these tools. And the last thing that I would say is, if you have an AI, like a artificial intelligence object or character that interacts with you based on your navigation or based on your actions. So this is something that you still need to use coding knowledge, because this is something that you need to code as an AI maybe algorithm, and based on what you are creating there, it actually reacts back to you. Like you probably play a few games, right? On these games, everything is based on what the player reacts. So the same mindset.
Mm-hmm. And then like speaking about Unity for a second, just again, to give people who are kind of getting exposed for the first time to this. So Unity is the company name or the brand name of the software. And how would I get Unity? And is there a license fee? How does it work? And then to learn Unity, if I did get Unity, it's basically giving me an access where I can, like what you were just describing, where I can actually create things completely from scratch versus using a platform like Engage, where I go in and it's almost the way I'd say it is, rather than in layman terms, it's rather than going into PowerPoint and making a presentation, Unity lets you build the software that makes the presentation. You know, you're doing it from scratch versus going and using PowerPoint. Do you want to describe, just to get people a little bit familiar with Unity?
Definitely. Actually, this is very interesting because we have released a blog post about Unity versus Unreal. So actually, I can also maybe on YouTube we can also add that link as well.
So this is Unity versus Unreal Engine.
Unreal, yeah, Unity
Unreal,
versus
Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, but it also maybe I can share my screen because
Sure.
this will be the perfect opportunity, in my opinion, to show directly on our flow chart.
Sam, you might have to give him. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, you can also look at our XR Bootcamp website, but the main idea is visual scripting, as I mentioned, like the Lego type of part that you can literally use it with your plug and play mindset, right? So you don't need to necessarily know coding. So even today, there is very powerful, especially Unreal's visual scripting is quite powerful, that without any coding, that with adding up behaviors and let's say processes back to back, you can literally create a chain of actions and interactions inside the real-time 3D environment. So there are actually many architects using blueprints from Unreal. So from my perspective, if you will not go into coding, you will only use visual scripting, you can definitely use Unreal as well. And there are, of course, many technical things. I will not go to that, but the main idea is both of them has let you to have source code access. So, or coding access means that you can, whatever you created in the visual scripting, you can still go deep in it. And there are a lot of documentations that you can start, and you can see Unity versus Unreal. This is Unity, like it's actually both of them. If you want to start, especially for this competition, you don't need to pay anything. Unity has no royalty, so this is also interesting. If you are really expecting huge revenue, maybe Unity might be interesting, especially if you don't know so much coding knowledge and you want to start VR development from scratch. I recommend, and we mostly use Unity, but Unreal also makes sense, especially for big studios. Usually it's being used because the visual fidelity is much better. And as I mentioned to you, this cross-platform support is very important right now. Both engines, like these are two leading engine platforms, are actually supporting cross-platform. But what might be interesting for you guys, maybe, I don't know if I can show it to you here, if it's being shown clearly, but this is actually quite interesting that I would like to go through with you, if it's okay for you guys. Let me try to make it 1 second. Let me try to, oh, yes. So basically, let's go through together because this will really help a lot for anyone here. So if you have an experience Unity or Unreal, we are asking the question, would you like to rather leverage your existing experience or choose engine based on its unique features? So if it is your existing experience, we recommend you use Unity with like some limitations that you can see here, but Unreal also give you the existing experience, especially if you have an animation and photogrammetry heavy project. We recommend that you use Unreal because it's quite powerful on the photogrammetry side, and based on this, you can really select which engine that you will use. But if you don't have any experience, which I guess on our side, this is the most of the audience that you mentioned. So we are usually asking, like, do you have any programming or art experience? If you have art experience, Unreal, as I mentioned to you, will be more appealing, especially if you don't intend to go to the coding side so much, so with Unreal Blueprint. But if you have a little bit of programming experience, we recommend that with the quite easy scripting, like a coding capabilities of Unity, you can start learning VR development pretty easily compared to Unreal. And if you don't have any experience on any of these programming or art, the question is which platform you are building, right? If you are building for standalone and mobile, which you are using the headset of the chipset of the VR headset or AR headset, then, or mobile AR, we recommend that you use Unity as well, because Unity is less demanding in terms of
Processing power.
Exactly, processing power, battery life, etc. But if you are working on a like a non-mobile, like a PC, etc., we recommend that Unreal might be interesting. But again, on that part, Unreal's learning curve is quite heavy, especially you need to know C++. So that's why it's making things a little bit more complicated. But if you are comfortable to spend enough time, Unreal can be an option. Otherwise, Unity is always best for beginner level people.
Okay, so for people in our community, if you did want to try to really seriously consider a more professional career building games, building virtual reality environments, not using platforms like Engage to bring like exponential density, we help schools use that platform to figure out how to do education and learning, whether it's Spatial or Engage or those platforms. Again, what Ferhan is sharing with you here is this is like bottom-up build. This is like, if you want to build something that you own all the intellectual property for, you're not using someone else's platform to put your stuff in, you're building it all yourself. These are kind of the two major environments, the two software packages or platforms that you use, called Unity and Unreal. And what XR Bootcamp has on their website is they built this little flow chart to help you kind of make a decision on which platform is right for you. The summary of that, based on what you just shared, Ferhan, is I would say Unreal is going to require C++ coding as a skill set. So if you have a good programming background in computer code, especially C++, you're going to excel in this environment because you're going to get in there. It's going to look familiar, and you're going to be able to build things and start using the functionality of this platform to create environments. But you're going to have to do some hard coding. Whereas Unity, it's not that doesn't require any coding, but it's a little bit more. But there's aspects to it where you can get by creating things from scratch that require some level of technical proficiency and coding, but not as deep as what Unreal has. Is that fair?
Exactly. But one thing that I would like to add, as I mentioned, I specifically mentioned about these architects using Unreal. So if you don't have so much interactions, when I say interaction, is it clear, like grabbing an object, throwing an object, or
you're basically saying
the door, right?
If you don't want, the way I would translate that, you're asking if the environment you're going to create doesn't require so much understanding physics and having physics play out in that environment. Then
Unreal might be a clever option as well. because you can literally use their Blueprint visual scripting tool, which is a no-coding tool that you can pretty much learn in a few weeks even, with a little bit of commitment. Because keep in mind that, let's say, especially in SDG type of projects, I have seen a lot of virtual tour type of things, right? Rather than you are so much interacting, you are being exposed to some kind of like a tour that you are or exhibition that you are actually being part of, right? So you don't have so much interactions there. The visual fidelity or what you have seen or the art or the assets that you are creating is way more important, right? So from that perspective,
if I'm a real estate developer and I wanted just to show you a virtual twin, a digital twin of a house that I created, and I'm not going to have any interaction with that house. Like,
so you will not open the drawer, right? So then perfect. Unreal might make sense if you want to just show the environment, because Unreal, as I mentioned, has huge photogrammetry opportunities. In Unity, you can also do an amazing thing, but Unreal has a huge also store that you can actually literally bring any texture, any kind of let's say monument or street or historical assets into life. So this is a very powerful thing.
Why don't we switch gears and talk a little bit about like the curriculum? If I were to, what you're an expert at is if I wanted to actually become this kind of high technical metaverse VR XR professional, you've created a whole roadmap on what type of courses I need to take and how I need to start to skill myself to get in this space professionally. Do you want to share a little bit about like what are the classes and the courses that someone should take, whether they take that through the XR Bootcamp or they go onto YouTube and do Google searches to try to find this information to try to understand it themselves? Like what's the roadmap look like for me to educate myself to get to that skill level?
Definitely. Let me also share my screen again. So one second. Yeah, so basically in our classes, we are focusing on the things that is not easy to learn by yourself, right? So you need some supervision, mentorship. So we are always focusing on these kind of classes on our side. So let me share my screen. The most critical part for us is actually C# coding part, which you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
So C# coding part that we expect you to know at least the basic scripting language. I have good news for you because this class is completely free. It's a 40 hours class that you can literally start learning by yourself. This class is important. We are not making you a software engineer in 40 hours. This is a huge commitment. But what is the goal here is to give you enough scripting knowledge that whenever you want to at least modify things or build things from scratch on Unity, you can use this algorithmic mindset and coding knowledge for using in Unity. And the foundations is 2 months program that we are teaching everything related with Unity and Unreal. So I can also a little bit share more about that. And the last one is the prototyping that we are sharing actually, like it's fully like a hands-on prototyping based sprints. So let me share here. So yeah, you can actually see here much clearly. So as you see, this is a free course that you can take today. Foundations is 8 weeks and prototyping is 8 weeks. So on the foundations part, you learn everything related with C#, Unity, advanced XR tools, and you start your first XR project. So it looks a little bit theoretical, but all our modules and weeks are quite hands-on and demanding. This means that every week you need to finish easy, medium, hard assignments, and every assignment is actually part of a industry project. So at the end of the program, you are already creating an like an industry level project.
So let's pause here for a second, because I think this is an extremely helpful kind of roadmap. So let me just repeat what you're sharing, Ferhan. So if you're interested in getting into this field and taking it to a whole another professional level and learning kind of the coding side of this capability, what you're seeing, the XR Bootcamp, and this was on xrbootcamp.com.
Yeah.
What they've essentially worked out over, I'm sure it took you many, many years to figure out the proper way to get people up to speed with this. And this is why I like this. You know, as a foundational, and you guys offer this for free, foundational, you should learn C# scripting. And in about 40 hours, if you take it seriously, you'll be able to skim the surface on C# enough to know how to do some basic scripting that will get you, so you understand you don't fall behind with the rest of the upskilling. Then you get into this XR foundations where you actually start, and this is where you're suggesting that it's going to be a little bit challenging for you just to learn this on your own. This is why you offer the boot camp, is for people that want more of an instructional led environment to learn these capabilities and get into Unity and to get into these platforms and start prototyping. And then
I mean, one thing maybe I can add, I think especially starting with the pandemic, most of the Unity's own tutorials become free, everything. So in my opinion, anything here, at least like till the end of foundations, you can learn by yourself. The question is how many hours and how many years you can afford, you know. So in terms of like learning, there are many people who did an amazing job of learning all these Unity VR development skills by themselves. But the situation is, since it's not a very established industry, whenever you get stuck, it is usually quite difficult to find the right answer from the right person, right? So that is what we are actually aiming here. We have already like modules, but you have to do things, and because it's not like following along only, you are really pushing your limits with the right assignments. And usually you are getting stuck in these assignments, because we know that these are actually a typical pitfall that you may already face, you know, in an industry project. So we are actually showing this potential challenge to you at the beginning of your journey, so you can actually understand how you can evade these challenges, right? And this is like a supervised environment that we are giving unlimited feedback and mentorship there. So that's why in our case that you can achieve that in such a short period of 8 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like, you know, I can learn physics by just watching some YouTube videos and trying to piece it together myself, but it'll take me 3 or 4 times longer versus if I had a physics professor who knows how to teach this topic to me. So the same thing here. How do you get access to your courses? How do you sign up? What's it cost to be part of this bootcamp?
So before that, let me also explain, because this is a total pathway. So at the end of foundations 2 months program, the prototyping phase is also very important for us. As I mentioned, we are really hands-on. So this prototyping phase is mostly, instead of getting lectures, you are actually being part of prototyping sprints. Every week, you are creating another use case-based prototype. So we are assigning you one technical mentor, one project manager. So these people, you are literally entering to like a studio-based simulated environment that you have to finish the sprints on time every week. Every day you have daily Scrum meetings, you know. So it's really like a studio environment, because the goal of this whole thing, as you can see in the title, skill to job, right? So we need to simulate the job environment as much as we can before they find a job. And you are creating a portfolio there. And the whole program is actually our 4 months or 4+1 month program.
So let's pause on that for a second, because you bring up a good point. If you're going to be a professional in this space and you're going to work with others, there's a professional methodology that's used by studios that create in VR. So if you go get a job in a company somewhere, or you go get a job with a team of people, the industry has gravitated towards an approach and methodology in which to do projects. It's Scrum sessions, it's project management, it's prototyping and minimum viable products. It's all these things that you have to learn, because otherwise you might have a great technical skill, but you walk into an environment to get a job and no one knows how to work with you because you don't know how to fit into the method of producing.
Exactly.
So that's really helpful. You actually you mimic that because you want people to realize, hey, when you get out into the real world and you actually want to work with people, you've got to know how to be a developer and where code is stored and check-in and check-out processes, and how to, do design sessions, get feedback, and then go put an iteration together. There's all this approach and protocols and best practices for that. So beyond the technical skill set, you need to know that. And that's partly what you teach as well.
Exactly. And the most important thing that we are teaching is scoping, because especially now, since SDG Metaverse Prize also has some deadline, right? So how 1 week look like in my development journey, right? How my 2 months look like, So if you only follow along tutorials, etc., you cannot estimate how your 1 week of development deliverables look like. So in our scoping sessions at the beginning of each sprint week, we are sitting down together and defining the features of that prototype that you would like to build. And every week you are realizing that, okay, I a little bit exaggerated this week with putting all of these features, multiplayer, all these interactions, etc. So you are also understanding that what are the most smartest features that I can add to my prototype, that at least in terms of functionality it will work, but the rest of the thing I can still do as a polishing or as a making it demo ready, right? But at least the basic functions that your client or your price or your program that you are being part of is expecting from you is still there, right? So the scoping part, in our opinion, is one of the important things that we are teaching throughout these sprint weeks.
Okay, interesting. Maybe in the time that remains, you can show, I thought you had a whole advanced curriculum too that gets into kind of a next level. I think back on the main website you had.
Yeah. We have also advanced classes as well. I can, especially interactions, and these three are right now quite our focus as well. So let me try to share this with you. So this is, for example, our HoloLens class. So we are teaching mixed reality here. In 6 weeks program, you are learning mixed reality interaction toolkit, but keep in mind that these are intermediate to advanced classes. So even in our beginner level class, everything is beginner friendly. So anyone with zero coding skill can join in our beginner level classes. But these classes, you need to really have a little bit of Unity and coding knowledge, at least for this intermediate class. And another class which is maybe interesting is our advanced class, which is advanced via interactions. Let me try to find that as well. Yeah, I can show actually what our people are creating in the advanced via interactions class. So as you see here, these are all students' projects after advanced via interactions. As I mentioned to you, whenever there is complex interactions, Unity performs well. So this is actually a Unity-based advanced class. In the first one, they are from New York University. Their dentistry department sent their developers to us to convert all of their teaching material to simulation, medical simulation. So students can actually learn by implementing actually. This is Springify is also using quite a sophisticated programming language. And as you see, Domina, there's actually quite interesting physics-based interaction here. So what we are trying to achieve here is not only fidelity of visuals, right, but fidelity of interactions. Especially all these projects are based on hand tracking. So you don't need a controller. You can literally use your physics to achieve that, and you are using inverse kinematics and many different advanced interaction technique to achieve these results. And if you are already a Unity developer, in 8 weeks, you are coming to this lifelike interaction level, which most of the companies are sending their developers for that reason.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and this is like we've said before, this is akin to learning how to code the next generation of the internet. I mean, this is what businesses, what governments, what schools and others are going to use virtual reality, mixed reality, and the metaverse for. You know, you can see a few examples of that here. In closing, Ferhan, do you want to talk a little bit? I know you've got some slides and some statistics on kind of the increase in market demand for, you know, these engineers, these more professional, technical professionals in this skill set, in this space.
Yeah, definitely. I think this one is the most maybe important slides, because as you see here, there's a huge demand to AR/VR engineers in the market. Of course, the maybe recession, etc., might affect every company, but for example, you probably have heard in 1 month, Meta just announced that they will release another headset, right? With face tracking, face tracking, eye tracking, Quest Pro. So every headset is actually making the market a little bit like growing demand, because demand is not only in terms of projects, it's also directly affecting the talent base, right? And as you see here, since, as I mentioned, like in the beginning, we are also dealing with the quality of talents, right? Not only quantity. So especially there is quite a big shortage of senior talents right now in the market. And our goal is to actually take a person from 0 level with no coding, no Unity, no development, VR development skills, and bring them to entry level first in 4 or 5 months, and afterwards taking them to the advanced senior level, right? So this is the pathway that we are trying to achieve. And as you see here, the growth of AR/VR engineer demand is quite high compared to other positions. And the interesting thing from our perspective, you can see that, I mean, the most important, I think, message that we can give today is, since I'm doing a lot of mentoring, career mentoring or coaching to many people, and I'm seeing that, oh, I don't know, like an engineer, I have 0 coding skills, I cannot do that. Oh, I'm a concept artist, I cannot do on VR AR. I think Samantha is already a very nice example, as you mentioned, but to be honest, if you commit enough, it is not that difficult anymore, right? The learning of XR development also democratized, become accessible, affordable. You don't even need to, in our case, you mentioned about the pricing. Normally you have to pay maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to like for a college degree, etc. On our case, only like for $7,000 and only for 4 or 5 months of like commitment, part-time commitment, you can literally start applying for entry-level positions.
Yeah,
it is.
No, I agree with you. So let's thank you, Ferhan. Let's conclude on this point, because this is, I mean, this is at the essence of why we launched this competition. Remember, the competition is being launched by a educational nonprofit, Exponential Destiny. So our goal here is, it's a little bit of a wake-up call. You know, it's reaching out to people to say, if you're in a situation where you've been told learning how to code is so important for you to be successful and relevant in the new job economy, what we're emphasizing is identify an industry space that's starting to take off, that's a revolution, that's a game changer. It's no coincidence that one of the largest companies in the world, Facebook, changed their name to Meta, and now you see Apple coming out with headsets and glasses, Facebook, Google, etc. The industry is telling us that this is getting ready to take off. now you got a lot of capital flowing. You got a lot of money, you got a lot of venture capitalist funding, you got a lot of money that's now infused into this whole industry. That wasn't the situation 5 or 6 years ago, Ferhan, right? I mean, for those of us that have been paying attention to this industry, it was a little bit of the chicken and the egg problem. When do we have a headset that's quality, that's affordable? So software players want to create software. And when is there enough software where someone wants to create the headsets? We're kind of at that equilibrium now where it's actually generating the market and the market's taking off. We can't emphasize enough to people out there that you only come across these things once in a generation. I can only remember in my lifetime 1 or 2 situations where there was something that was so big that was happening around a technology shift that if you're able to insert yourself a little bit ahead of the curve, you were put at such an exponential advantage over others versus coming in late. You know, so learning coding around web developers, which they're still teaching in high schools, it's like 30 years too late to teach that. AI can do a lot of that coding now. So what you're hearing from this session, and hopefully people are getting this perspective, Exponential Destiny has been emphasizing that the software has become so user-friendly. It's basically like PowerPoint in 3D, and you can actually use that software to create solutions and capabilities for companies like BlendHub, who you saw the other day. We had BlendHub on, and we built that in Engage. That was a company. We had the CEO of BlendHub talking about how they hired Samantha and others, paid them to come in and actually build these in spaces within one of these existing platforms. And then what you're alluding to is you can take it to a whole nother level where you can be the creator of the platforms themselves using Unity and Unreal. But even with that, computer programming has gotten so sophisticated that even that, now that you're going to a higher level of programming in terms of your competency and skill set, it's still not rocket science. Like it's not something, if you just dedicate yourself to this and get in some of these courses like the Bootcamp course that Ferhan offers, now I'd say in the next year is the best opportunity you could do to get into this field, because you're now ahead of everybody else. And as this market rises, you rise with it because you've got that skill set. And hopefully people use this competition as an incentive, like, why don't I have fun, do it as part of putting my skills to test by creating an educational awareness and empathy around a sustainable development goal. That's a great use case. We can all do that. And, you know, maybe you'll all end up producing such a great environment that I'll be rewarded on the ITU UN stage in Geneva next June, if that's where we end up having it. So, you know, have fun with it and be part of this community. So yeah, I appreciate that, Ferhan. Also, it's fun to see a pioneer in the space. I mean, you obviously had some foresight to be able to see this market emerging and realize there's a whole educational curriculum that's going to be a big need in the marketplace. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, as a last maybe a piece of advice that I can tell, no matter which level of coding you know or what part of XR development that you are being part of, maybe you will do something on Engage, Mozilla Hubs, low code, no code, or you directly go deep into the code, right? One thing doesn't change, that this industry expects from you. Always iterate, always prototype. This is something that the industry needs that today, no matter what is your level. It will help your learning journey, but the critical part is this. It is such a new human-computer interaction paradigm that we haven't explored most of the stuff. So always, whenever we are doing this prototyping, we are always asking the question of, okay, we created this in VR or in AR. Was it really necessary? Why I cannot achieve the same result on mobile, smartphone, or PC, right? So we have to leverage the power of using our hands.
Yeah.
It's not like a touch screen anymore, right? We have to leverage the power of 3D UI, right? Holographic UI, right? Yeah. So without these things, whatever we created will not make sense. So even with the platforms you just mentioned, Engage, etc., and of course with Unity, you can still iterate because this industry will need that. So that is I mean, whenever you submit something for this amazing like set of prizes, I recommend you that you did enough number of iterations, maybe 5 maybe 10, maybe 100. Okay, so it will make look more polished, but it will also with, of course, user testing, right? Taking user feedback, you can iterate because you need to get feedback for every iteration. So you will realize that people will immerse themselves much better, right? That's very important.
That's a really,
and
that's, yeah, that's a, that's a really important point. We've actually talked about that exponential destiny. You know, we create capabilities for schools to teach and learn. And our criteria is, why do I need to be in a VR headset to learn this way? Couldn't I just do this effectively in a classroom? And that's got to be the bar. It's like, I don't want to put a headset. I'd much rather look at a teacher in real life than put on a headset and look at an avatar. And I don't want to get into
augmenting the experience, right?
Exactly. So I think your emphasis that use the real estate and the capabilities, use your superpowers. If you're designing in VR, make a lot of things where you use a 3D interface with your hands and you have to manipulate stuff. Otherwise, I could just as easily have a Zoom call and have that experience. I don't really need, I mean, sure, people like to be in VR for the first time and they think it's amazing, but the reality is, you know, the first time you go to a classroom in a school, you think it's amazing. And then that atrophies over time and your interest wanes, you get disinterested and you're not as excited about going to school anymore. Same thing's going to happen in VR. So you really got to maximize. And what you're emphasizing is fail and learn, like try new things, stretch it till you break it, and just try to get some really extreme experiences because nobody knows yet. Nobody knows how to maximize this user interface where you have 3 dimensions that you're working in with your hands. And yeah, that's perfect. I like that. Exactly.
I mean, like look at even like augmented reality, right? For example, I want to see the how clean the air is right now in my environment, right? I can look at with this. I can look at on the PC, or I can look at with this, right? When I look at around, I will even see the maybe corners or the parts that the cleanness of the air is changing, right? So this is even so powerful, right? You are using the power of being present there and being in that environment. So these kind of like use cases that we always like a lot. I'm sure that in your also this whole selection process, this will be the maybe parts, the ones that care about this will be the ones who will outstand among others.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, I think we should wrap it up. It's a good information session. I think you shedded some light on this whole technical professional field, Ferhan. So thank you to you and the XR Bootcamp team for helping us get that message across.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Marcus. And we are really looking forward to working closely, starting with this prize and initiative. I hope that we can create enough impact that we will be proud of all together.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks.
Thank you very much.